everyone. Good evening, everyone. An unusual announcement. We've sadly heard that Mayor Mike is feeling unwell this evening, so he's not able to be with us. So I'm sure we'll send our very best wishes to him for a quick recovery. For reasons that I hope will be obvious, we haven't asked our Deputy Mayor to sit in on the first item of business, which is in fact the election of the Mayor for the year ahead. So with your permission, I'll just guide us through that first item, and you will, in doing that, then install your Mayor and your Chairman for the remainder of the meeting, and of course for the year ahead. So I'll just make the announcements that you are used to hearing, of course. So it's the usual pack drill around filming the council meetings. Councillors and members of the public may film in the chamber but not in the public areas. And we're not expecting a fire alarm this evening, so if there were to be an alarm sounded, we'll go to the usual muster point on Broadway. With a genuine sense of sadness that I announced to you tonight that we've heard of the passing of somebody who many of us will have known for many years, Alderman Bill Goldsmith, who served on the council, as many of you will know, alongside his partner Sheila Delaney, both long-serving councillors in the borough, Labour councillors. Bill also served as a magistrate locally, many years, as I say, as a Labour councillor between 1986 and 1998, and a figure who I will always remember for his smile. He had a very warm smile, I think, and he was a very warm personality, and I personally knew Bill and Sheila for the entirety of that period that they were both serving on the council before they moved to Cumbria, I think. So again, I'm sure our thoughts are with the family and friends of Bill. I don't know if there is any colleague leader who would just like to say anything on behalf of Bill, and then perhaps if we can take any comment from Zach, if you'd like to make a comment too, and then we'll stand for a minute's silence, if that's okay.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, just on behalf of the Labour Group, our condolences to the family. I think Bill has left a lot of legacy in the Labour Group. He was probably one of the big figures who inspired many people to actually go into politics. I had met Bill when he was going out of politics when I came in, but we kept in touch as a group, and he did attend many functions, and his experience and his contributions certainly will be remembered, and he was duly awarded with gold as well. So as far as the Labour Group is concerned, our condolences to the family, and he was a gentleman as well, and he served as a magistrate, and he was going out when I actually joined the magistrate, but we kept in touch in that circumstance as well. Thank you.
Thank you, and again, just on the Conservative Group, extending condolences to Bill, to his wife, his family, and also to the Labour Group, and your colleagues. He was a St Oswald councillor, and I've got the benefit of picking up all the good work that he did over that time. I know he was a councillor from the 80s and the 90s. I was born in that time in St Oswald's, so all of that good work that he would have done as a councillor to keep that place a good place we're going and to live was obviously a lot of what he did and what he did here. So condolences to the family and to the Labour Group.
And I wonder, just by way of just a more personal message, Bernard, I know that you were very friendly with Bill and Sheila. I wonder whether you'd like just to say anything.
Yeah, it's sad. The last time I saw him around to Sheila's funeral, that's one she went up there. But yeah, it was a good councillor though. Since the time when we used to be in seats, it wasn't. But yeah, I mean, it's sad. Well, yeah, it's alright.
Now you got yourself in trouble.
I mean, I also did a lot of walking with Bill as well, because as you know, I mean, we all walked there, didn't we? But, I mean, they actually said in paper that they were 80, I think they were nearer 90. In fact, I think they did one that people were putting it all on and said they were 91. I never even more than 80, you know, but I remember one time, just in the previous reincarnation, putting a lot of electrician in, then my name Bill Grossman putting this outside lights at big old winter up, the fingers dropping off. Oh, you can do that, Bill says, you know, but, yeah, I mean, you saw a caravan, if I remember. She was married now, so then it's...
Where did Caravan, remember where he lived?
Yeah, yeah, I mean, it was, you know, funny man was Bill, you know. I mean, there were times that we didn't know to get our client and everything, but we'll leave that. Yeah, it's that loss, and it's not that long ago that Sheila sadly died as well, you know. It used to always be Bill and Sheila, although if anybody knew Sheila, it was Sheila and Bill, wasn't it? But yeah, sad loss.
Thank you, Munsif and Zach and Bernard for those tributes, and we'll leave it there. So we'll just have a moment's silence. Stand if you feel comfortable doing so. And Bill wasn't a somber character, so if you feel like having a smile and remembering his smile, then please do. Okay, I'm sure Bill will be happy with that. Okay, so I'm just guiding you through the first item of business. I'm not the chair of the meeting, but I will guide you through that. And of course, you are all members. And the first item of business that you're required to conduct at the annual general meeting is your election of the mayor, who will chair your meetings to the new municipal bureau. Leader, can I please ask you to make your proposal?
Thank you. This week we expect to nominate Councillor Josh Allen as Mayor for the municipal year 2025-26.
Thank you.
Actually, second, it's a great pleasure to second my colleague and friend Josh Allen.
Thank you. Normally, of course, there are speeches that are made at the mayor making itself, so if you're content with proposing and seconding, I will move you straight to a vote on the matter. So please can I ask for all those in favour? That is a unanimous vote for you, Josh. Congratulations, and can I ask you to join me in the mayoral chamber, and when you return you will be the mayor of Hyndburn. So
All right.
Members of the Council, ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the Mayor of Hyndburn, Councillor Josh Allen, accompanied by the Chief Executive.
Thank you. Please be seated. Thanks. I, Josh Allen, having been elected to the office of Mayor, hereby declare that I take such office upon myself and will duly and faithfully fulfil the duties thereof, according to the best of my judgment and abilities. Thank you.
Can I ask you to sign the declaration, please, Josh? Normally, of course, at this stage, the retiring mayor would present the form to Josh, but we've done that in the council chamber. Thank you.
You can tell. Very uncomfy chair this, by the way. It's so live band. Obviously, with my not being here, it's hard to sort of give thanks to him, but obviously in his absence, we'll say it anyway, just so the group appreciate him. I'd like to say thank you to obviously the Mayor and Mayoress who are both leaving us. I know they've had an enjoyable time and a fantastic year. We've had many talks being Mike, and it's he has thoroughly enjoyed it, even though he's knacking himself out a bit. I know they've raised quite a lot of money for their charities, and the top tail for a fantastic mayor's ball, which is quite enjoyable. I think we can all agree that during Mike's reign, he's helped, with the help of both party leaders, he's helped restore a bit more of dignity and maturity to this chamber. I do hope to carry on that legacy that he's started, to be honest. And I'm sure after speaking with Zach and with Muncie, we can all do that together. And obviously I'd like to thank both of them as well for proposing me and seconding me. It is a great honour. I'd like to thank everybody else for their unanimous support as well. And I hope to do this borough proud and yourselves proud. Do the best. Thank you. Yeah. Well, I've no more of that now. We now move to agenda item 2, which is the election of the Deputy Mayor. Are there any nominations for the Deputy Mayor?
Mr. Mayor, take this opportunity to congratulate myself and also like to congratulate Mum who went out because certainly you can probably use yes, I'd like to propose Councillor Nurdal Aziz for Deputy Mayor for the municipal year 2025 and 2026.
Thank you. Can I have a seconder?
Yeah, I'd like to second the proposal made by the council for Councillor Aziz to be the deputy mayor. I'd be glad to make sure that he shuts up politically for a year. Can we have him there permanently? But he's a pleasure, no doubt. You do a fantastic job.
Brilliant, thank you. So we'll go to the vote now. Can I have a show of hands of all in favour? Any against? And any abstentions? Fantastic. Can I now ask the new Deputy Mayor to read and sign the declaration?
I, Murda Desi, having been elected to the office of Deputy Mayor, hereby declare that I take such office upon myself and will duly and faithfully fulfil the duty thereof according to the best of my judgment and ability.
Thank you. So now we can move on to the rest of the meeting, which just then goes back to normal format. So we've had apologies for absence from Councillor Mike Booth and from Councillor Danny Cassidy. Have any other apologies for absence? Councillor Fisher?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe that Councillor Kate Walsh has been delayed and she's possibly unaware,
Thank
but
you.
I'm not sure yet.
Councillor Khan?
Yeah, Councillor Lorraine Cox has actually apologies due to a family emergency, and also Councillor Howard may arrive, which on hospital appointment, so she does leave that apology.
Thank you. Are there any declarations of interest, announcements or dispensations? And then we'll move on to the announcements from the leader, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to update the council regarding the local government reorganisation. As you know, in March this year, the 15 councils in Lancashire wrote to the government to say that we have been discussing a range of options for unitary government in this county. That letter asked for feedback from government on a number of key points. I have promised to keep council updated on any response from government, and I can now tell you that the feedback from Lancashire was received early this afternoon. The feedback is very detailed and lengthy, and I will therefore ask that it be sent to you all tomorrow morning rather than trying to read it out tonight. This means that we are now at phase 2 of the process, and we have until the 28th of November to submit the final proposal for how we see the structure of local government in Lancashire. Here in Hyndburn, we have initially resolved to support the creation of 3 unitary authorities in Lancashire, with one of the authorities being East Lancashire Council. Once we have digested the feedback, we will need to consider if that means our preferences, and I will ask the council to confirm these views in due course. So I will continue to keep you informed of all important developments. And this document will obviously be circulated tomorrow to all councillors, so you can read exactly what the response is from the local housing and community local government office. The second is just an update on the good performance of our planning department. Over the past few years, the performance of Hyndburn Council's Development Management Service has been a significant improvement. Back in the 12 months leading to December 2022, just 44% of major planning applications and 61% of non-major applications were determined within the statutory time frame or agreed extensions. These figures fell below the government's targets of 60% for major applications and 70% for non-major. Thanks to sustained offers, including staff training, system improvements, greater team stability, and effective use of government backward funding, we've turned this round. In the 12 months to December 2024, 93% of major applications and 93% of non-major applications were determined on time. This not only meets but exceeds national targets and averages. Perhaps more importantly, the backlog of older applications has been significantly reduced, with only a minimal number now older than 6 months. These improvements is a testament to the commitment of professionalism of our planning team. In parallel, our planning policy team has now made major strides in March they successfully submitted our new local plan to the planning inspector for independent examination. This examination process is now underway and will continue over the next 12 to 18 months, with in-person hearing sessions scheduled for the autumn. In the meantime, the policy team has now prepared our local planning guidelines, including policies for children's homes and homes in multiple occupations, which are on track and for imminent adoption. Additionally, work is well advanced to bring into force an Article 4 direction in key areas of the borough, giving the council greater ability to manage the impact of homes in multiple occupations in our local communities. Earlier this year, the department was successfully awarded both salary and educational bursaries totaling approximately £80,000 as part of the Pathways to Planning graduate recruitment programme run by the Local Government Association. This programme is designed to help tackle staffing shortages throughout local government planning teams by upskilling graduate planners. A new fixed-term 2-year graduate planning officer post will be created, with interviews taking place later this month and a September start date. It is anticipated that the additional staffing resource will provide further capacity in the team and will help sustain current performance level. So our planning department is moving forward in the right direction, making strides in improvement and not only meeting but suppressing national targets. The third final one, Mr. Mayor, is the Accrington Stanley Academy. Following the announcement last week in Accrington Stanley Football Club will be closing its football academy, urgent talks took place yesterday to see if a financial support package from council would prevent the closure and safeguard the academy's long-term future. We also agreed with the Accrington Stanley Football Club that a statement will be made by Accrington Stanley. So there are obviously a lot at stake, especially jobs. So we'll just give you that information at this time, and being any other information that will be due, I will certainly try and inform the council. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Are there any announcements from Mr. Wellesley?
No announcements, thank you.
We're on to item number 6, which is confirmation of the minutes from the last council meeting held on 27th of March 2025. I move the minutes as presented and as a correct record. Do I have a seconder?
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone like to speak on those minutes? Councillor Heath.
So it's minute number 417, Mr. Mayor. It's on King George's. Now, everybody will be aware I raise it every time in this chamber, King George's. I've asked for an update 3 times, no update has been forthcoming. It's in the meetings. I asked at a scrutiny meeting what work was planned, when it was planned. They said there was no plan. I then asked it again at this council, and I asked what the plan is. I said I was told that I'd get a detailed plan sent to me. That plan never came. I hear today, after much pressure from not just myself but the public, that there is a plan now out there, that it's been published today. So could I ask again, please, can we have the details of that plan in this chamber? Thank you.
Anybody like to reply to the
Somebody will reply, Councillor Heath, in about 2 minutes' time. There was a delay, it was asked to be sent to you on Monday, but the officers haven't sent it.
Thank you very much.
And also, just whilst I'm just in standing position, I wanted to say as well that also I would be pleased to know as well that I've been working with Accrington Wildcats for quite some time about reforming them, and as of 2 weeks ago they are now back on Wilson's, which was their original home, and they are being supported, as are many grassroots clubs across Hyndburn, by me, and that's my actions, not words.
Councillor Smithson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of questions regarding the minutes. 416, the devolution and local government reorganisation. Can the leader confirm today will the local elections go ahead in 2026? Minute 417 skip days. Still not heard anything from the controlling group on when they'll be coming back and when they'll be started. Accrington Stanley, we need to do as much as we can as a council to make sure that the academy stays open, because I'm guessing all councils have had the same feedback from parents who've got children in the academy who are worried about their future in the game. So please can we do as much as possible? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, first question regarding local elections, I don't know. So this is something that we'll once we find out exactly what the government is planning, I will let the council know. Question number 3 regarding Accrington Stanley. As soon as we heard that the Accrington Stanley Academy is in danger and the Accrington Stanley Football Club are looking to close it, I wrote a letter to the Chief Executive asking for a meeting, and that meeting took place yesterday. I thought I actually outlined exactly what happened, but there are Accrington Stanley Football Club are themselves are looking to put a statement out. I don't want to preempt that, so we're just waiting for them to actually put that statement out, which we support and we agreed yesterday. So that's all I can give. As far as support is concerned, absolutely we are committed as a council to try and support Accrington Stanley Football Club, the academy and the trust in forward, and we will keep you informed exactly what our actions are, not words.
Does anyone from the cabinet actually respond to question number 2? 2 indicates the allow 1.
Skip there.
Councillor Reeves.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had my portfolio meeting yesterday. Sorry, Councillor Smithson. It's pretty obvious now that Suey's aren't willing to honour the rest of the skips promised. We have had quotes from S&B tippers at Great Orwood. I've discussed it with Muncie today, and I'm sure we'll get them up and running as soon as possible. Thank you.
Councillor Cox first, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I'd like to just speak on the minutes from last meeting on the motion, the Accrington Stanley motion in particular. Again, I was stopped today by a member, well, a resident of mine who lives on Livingston Road, and said, have I any idea of any updates of what is actually happening with not the actual club and obviously the hub, that's obviously been talked about, what's actually happening with the events centre and the soundproofing, and is anything being done, something happening? Because we haven't heard anything for weeks now, well at least since the last meeting. Just wondering where we were, if any information, if anyone would like to pass that on to me privately outside of the meeting, no problem at all. But again, the residents are asking what is actually going on.
Anyone from the cabinet reply?
Yes, certainly. I will get the information and pass it on to yourself, Councillor Fox. Thank you.
I do know what you indicate, Councillor Heath, but as you've already spoken once on the minutes, we can't allow it to go on again. If that's everybody then, we'll move to the votes. All in favour? Any against? And any abstentions? So we move on to item number 7 now, which is appointments of the leader for the council for 2025-26. Are there any nominations for the leader of the council?
I would like to move Councillor Muncie down as leader of the council.
And can I have a second, please? There's no debate to be required for this, so we'll just move straight to the vote. All in favour? Any against? And any abstentions? Congratulations, Councillor Dow. We now move on to item 8, which is the appointment of committees, subcommittees, panels and working groups for 2025-26. An addendum setting out the nominations to serve on the various committees and other bodies is provided in your chairs this evening. So I'll move to, we'll have a mover for this.
I'll move this chair outlined.
And do we have a seconder?
I will second that, please, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. There is a debate for this, so would anyone who'd like to speak? Councillor Addison.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd I'd like to query the revised composition of the planning committee, being reduced from 13 to 12 members, and the Conservative portion of that from 4 members to 3. I always thought, although I've never seen it written down anywhere, that the planning committee ideally should have an odd number of members to reduce the likelihood of the chair frequently having to give a casting vote in the event of equality of votes. Because that might be seen perhaps by, if it happened too often, by members of the public as not particularly democratic. If it was a big and controversial application and it all basically hung on one person's vote. I don't know what the reason is really for reducing it from 13 to 12, but then within that we've got a ratio of 8-3-1, 8 Labour, 3 Conservative and 1 Independent. Well, the ratio for Labour to Conservative is 2-1, so really, if Labour have 8 places, we should have 4. Now, I've no objection to a place being given to the Independent, but if it was, the number was put back up from 12 to 13, we could win all round. We could have 13 members, 8 Labour, 4 Conservative and 1 Independent. And so I don't know why that hasn't been considered as a possibility. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Cole?
Yes, no, it does concern me that the planning committee and the scrutiny committee and others have been reduced in number. It only tells us one thing, Judith, that the controlling administration want to make sure they're pushing through planning applications that may be controversial, like one particularly in Oswestry. And we need to make sure that that isn't the case, and we need to allow the opposition groups to have debate and be able to have a number of people there to debate it. It is disappointing that both in the planning and other numbers, where it does matter for difference of opinions to be debated on that point, to have a broad group on there. And unfortunately, that's not what's happening in these numbers that are being taken. So it is concerning that for the planning, so it clearly is easier for the controlling group to put new planning applications through, and scrutiny, which has gone from 13 to 12 and then knocking us off somewhere there. So we can't scrutinise planning as much, and we cannot scrutinise the council finances as much, because we are reducing in number. Disappointing, and it is not necessary, and it can remain the same, and we can have the composition that is as described by Councillor.
Councillor Smithson?
Just a quick question regarding the resources and all the issues. I'm not sure if it's right. Can the deputy mayor chair a committee? Is my question. I'm not sure if he can or not.
Yes. Councillor Pritchard?
Thank you. As a member of the planning committee, I really resent the accusation from Councillor Cole that this group might force through any planning applications. It might happen in your group, you might do that, but we treat planning very, very seriously. It's a quasi-judicial committee. We do all have to have extensive training skills from that committee, and as we all know, well, we know, you might not know, that can't be ripped by any political group, so I do want that rescinding, please, Councillor Cole, because that insinuates something quite scandalous, really, and I wouldn't like to be involved in that as a member of the planning committee.
Would you like a right reply?
Of course, I won't rescind it, because why change the political composition of it if there's nothing else going on? It's about scrutiny, it's about having a variety of people in. So if it's not the case, and it's all quite political, allow us to have an extra member on it and stay the same. So I won't rescind it, because exactly that. It is not fair, and we need to have board members on there, so don't change it, have it as an odd number, as Councillor Anderson says. We all know Judith is absolute expert in planning, and in her fairness and the way that she does things. So take some advice from the person in this room who knows most about it.
Councillor Gilbert?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So just a minor point, drawn to the attention of relevant members of Hyndburn Borough Council staff already tonight that the Vauxhall Bank Management Committee doesn't exist. It didn't exist last year, was pointed to it either, which I've drew to attention. So hopefully that will get taken off. Drawn to attention of Councillor Stewart Easer would have been the substitute representatives. Yeah, I mean, both of us help out with the Vauxhall managers, it's not the same thing as saying there's a committee of which we're members appointed to.
So we have heard that point, but of course it relates to item 9, not item 8.
Councillor Parkins?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Like Councillor Pritchard said, everybody should know, all the councillors should know, that on planning, arbitrary one, there's no width, wasn't. I'm a little bit surprised that it didn't be kept to the odd number, to be honest. I think it's better with an odd member, and it doesn't lie onto the chair. Not because I'm the chair, head chair, you know, I think it's better with an odd member. Thank you.
If there's no other indicators, we'll come back to yourself, Councillor Dad, as a mover.
Yeah, well, Councillor Pritchard has said what needs to be said. I think Councillor Zach Brown is making some very disingenuous remarks as far as the planning application and the committee is concerned. I have sat in the planning committee myself for the last 8 years prior to actually coming off it, and every single committee decision was made by the members, given the information and the report and the personal judgment in front of them. I've been a magistrate for 22 years. I know how these decisions are made. You have an open mind when you go in, and then you give a decision on the information and the debate that takes place. So very disappointed in that fact. As far as the numbers are concerned, the Labour group were very generous because they gave the opposition a few more members last year. They weren't happy. So when those members are taken away, they're not happy. They're not happy at anything, unfortunately. So as far as scrutiny is concerned, there are 3 members there, and there will be other members who are independent on the scrutiny committee as well. They actually can hold the the controlling group and the cabinet portfolio holders an account. So everything is there. Rather than making some disappointing remarks, I think it's well, I take on board what they have said, but Dave knew exactly what the numbers were before. But I think there's a casting vote at the end of the day at any committee. I sat at the Development Control Committee at County Hall, and it was even numbers. So these things work, and I think the controlling group took a decision on where they want their members and how many there are, and I would propose that we vote on that one, Mr. Mayor.
Move to the vote then, so all in favour of this? Thank you. Any against? And any abstentions? Thank you, so it's passed. So we now move on to item 9, which is appointments to outside bodies and organisations. The schedule of the outside bodies is provided in your choice this evening, which includes the proposed amendment appointments. Do I have a mover?
I move that Mayor as outlined.
Thank you. And do I have a seconder?
I second that, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And does every member wish to speak on this? Nice and easy then. So we'll go to the vote, and if everyone's okay with that. All in favour of this? Any against? And any abstentions? Thank you, so it's carried. And now we move on to item number 10, which is the scheme of delegation to officers for 2025-26. Do I have a mover?
I move it as outlined, Mr. Mayor.
Do I have a seconder?
I second that, please, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And do any members wish to speak on this? Councillor Addison?
Yeah, just got the paper from you because I've read it. Among the items where the Chief Planning Officer can make the decision, there's prior approval and prior notice, and I'm a bit worried about those because they're typically the 5G masts and the best battery energy storage that have come under this regime, where the government basically has reserved most of the powers to itself and the local authority has very little say in it. And as you know, we have this very controversial situation in Oswald Twistle where, a 5G mast is proposed to be erected on Harvey Street, where there are 4 youth centres and where, their existence will be threatened, shall we say. So I do think that there's the matters where the public should, where the committee, the planning committee should be able to have a say on those because the people do feel very strongly about them. I'm not doubting the integrity and the ability of the head of planning, but I think there's reason to give the planning committee the opportunity to say something as well. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's somebody else going to speak on that with the removal act sum up?
Take on board what Councillor Edison has said, and I agree with it as far as some of the comments about unfortunately not within the local authority, but we're working with the group that you mentioned,
Yes.
also the local councils there, to see if we can find a solution.
Right,
So
okay.
we are working with them, but I agree with them.
Thank you. We'll then move to the vote then. Can I have a show of hands of all in favour? Thank you. All against? And any abstentions? We now move on to item number 11, which is a review of the Constitution. Do I have a mover?
I move that Mr. Mayor, as outlined.
Thank you. And do I have a seconder?
I'll second that, please, Mr. Mayor.
And do any members wish to speak on this? So we'll go with Councillor Collins first.
Awesome, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And it's just another example of how restrictive the controlling group are going to be in the future year. I was surprised that President Z wasn't up in the public gallery seeing his friends in the Hyndburn Labour Group with the way that they're putting through some of these elements. And last year, you mentioned about us not reading, and we did this year, I went through it. Judith went through it in a fine-tooth comb just to make sure you've not stuck anything in there. So, in relation to the Constitution, what I'm disappointed to see in a few points actually, and I know Julie's going to speak as well on this, but a few elements which really do concern me and should concern members of the public. So the first, as you're probably not surprised to hear about, is the questions that are put forward to this council from members of the public, and now that is not allowed. A member of the public is not allowed to submit a question to this council directly. They have to do so via their ward councillor, which again restricts the ability for the council to access this council, so members of the public to access this council. Last year, Councillor Aziz, you talked about transparency, and this is a retraction of that and not doing what we're saying. So we're asking questions when nobody, public doesn't know what's going on, people don't know what's happening, and this is again an example of where they actually don't want the public to know what is being going on because they don't want to have to actually about what they say, and don't want people to realise that they're not doing what they're saying they're doing in public. So that's really concerning, and I appeal to the controlling group to withdraw that. A member of the public might not get on with their ward councillor. That ward councillor may be part of the controlling group, but they don't feel as though they want to put it forward to change anything or against the cabinet, etc. The members of the public should have the ability to submit a question into this council individually and not have to rely upon any of us. That is democracy, and that is making sure it's accessible. And I appeal to the controlling group to take that out immediately and before we take a vote on the subject. We talk about having a say, we post out there, have a say in what projects that you want, have a say what you want to do with the project. This is again going against it. So you've had groups, as many of them are also doing the civic theatre, and many other people are putting questions in, and they've had a good response, and the response that they've had has been positive. So the one in positive civic theatre, a question came in, Councillor Whitehead, you provided a comprehensive update, and that was useful because they didn't have a member of the public, a member of the cabinet go to the meeting prior, so they were able to access and get the information if they hadn't had a response via email. The no petition scheme as well, so that's point one of the things that is being withdrawn. And it's not, and I don't know whether or not the controlling group intend to make it public that they're not allowing the public to answer questions. I don't know. The petition scheme, the requirement, I know Lancashire County Council has a quite active petition scheme and has been active. That is now being withdrawn and we're not having that. And I don't know why that is concerning. And I think it's just trying to, many of these elements of the Constitution that are being changed, is that it's just an attempt to try and make sure that the public don't know what's going on and can't ask questions. So if a member of the public emails in and you don't get a response, you have no recourse anymore. But if your ward councillor won't help you or do anything with it. So I appeal to the controlling group to withdraw and to take that out and make sure that the Constitution changes or do not still. Thank you, Mr.
Councillor Addison.
Yes, I want to speak on that same point about questions from the public. I've done quite a bit of Googling in these last few days, and I quite honestly haven't found any other instance of any council that limits things to this extent. In fact, some councils go beyond what we do. They allow petitions and they allow deputations at the full council meeting. So I think what we're doing currently is perhaps only, the basic that we're required to do. And, I do think that it's the democratic right of our citizens to be able to ask a question directly to the council, And I wonder, in the peer review that we had done towards the end of last year, what they would make of this move, because it can't be seen as enhancing community engagement when we're restricting the right of members of the public to put questions in directly. I also wonder how it will work in practical terms, because sending your question to your councillor, I mean, in reality, a lot of our residents don't know what ward they live in and who the ward councillors are, but even if they found out that, I mean, I think it's a bit unreliable in a way to have the questions sent by councillors, because a councillor isn't sitting in an office from 9 till 5, Monday to Friday, you know, receiving emails. The councillor may be working all day at the day job, or they may be on holiday, and you know, if the resident sends a question via email, it's getting a bit to the deadline, you know, it might not be seen, whereas if it's going into the council, as into member services or whatever, well, it should be picked up. The one thing that I don't like is the bit that comes later, it's in the appendix rather than in the report, where there's a little bit sneaked in that the ward councillor is not obliged to forward a question to the chief executive. Now, I think what gives me or any of my colleagues the right to veto questions from members of the public, who am I to say, well, that's a silly question, or it's not expedient politically? You know, that if the resident wants to ask something, well, let them ask it direct to the council. And also, if somebody sends us a question, you know, if we're not prepared to send it in for whatever reason, do we tell the resident there and then that we're not going to do it? What will the reaction be? Or do we say nothing at all, and a month later...
Just have 1 minute. I'm hearing quite a lot of talking, sorry, from the cabinet, and it's Callum Allison's right to speak can be heard at all times. Please continue.
Yes, if you don't acknowledge, say it's come to you by email and you don't acknowledge it, and you don't want to send it in, you know, a month later when you're in your local Tesco or whatever and the resident bumps into you, you know, I've never had a reply to that question. And then if I say, well, I never sent it in, well, I would like to imagine what the reaction of the resident would be. You know, they'll say, well, you are our councillor, you are there to represent us. So I think that's the worst aspect of all of it, that the ward councillor has a right of veto as to whether to send the question in or not to the chief executive. I think that is really bad. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Pritchard.
Thank you. I really don't want to have got you here because you know that I've got a lot of respect for you. But your Google search wasn't that great because LCC run exactly this system that questions have to go through councillors. I don't know about anybody else in this room, but I'm pretty certain that I can speak for this side, but I'm happy to represent residents to bring things forward to this council. That's the job that I was elected to do, and I'm happy to carry on doing that. Now, you're being disingenuous again, Councillor Khan. Nowhere in that report does it say that you've got to give it to your ward councillor. It's not in the report saying that at all. Anybody in this borough can send their questions to any councillor that they choose to. Nowhere in this report does it say local council, because it's something that I actually brought up in exactly the same way. You might not get on with your local councillor, and it might need to go to another councillor. It's what I brought up that way. I think actually this is better in a way, because often we get questions from members of the public, and they don't have a right to ask a supplementary question, which I think sometimes you've got more clarity. The answer that you get from the portfolio holder or whoever isn't enough, and there needs to be a follow-up to clear an issue up. Now, I would much rather have a conversation, an in-depth conversation with my resident, or whoever's resident it is. I would hope it wouldn't be a member from my resident, because I'd know what the issue was and I'd be able to speak to that. But certainly, I think to get more out of it, I think councillors have got a better way by asking a supplementary question to clear up any odds and ends that might not come in the report from whoever answers the question. So, again, I think you're being very disingenuous, Councillor Khan, and it's all right making paper headlines, and it really is. The election's over, I don't know if you know exactly what they are. We don't need to make political points in this place. You know, it's not all we've heard from you today is political posturing about the planning committee, insinuating that members from the Labour group aren't acting transparently on the planning committee. You might think that of your group, that you may act inappropriately, but I'm certain that this side wouldn't. So it's just more and more disingenuity from you, and it's really beneath you. I thought you were better than that. Seems that you're not.
We'll go through the people who have indicated first and who have time again.
I have a point of order to raise when convenient, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Bishop?
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. A lot of it was actually what Councillor Pritchard just said. The report doesn't say you have to go to your own ward councillor. You can go to any 35 of us in this room, have I got that right? Should you wish to ask a question. And I would like to think that every single councillor in this room would never purposely ignore a resident. So going back to what Councillor Addison said about what if they don't get a reply, I'd like to think that every one of us in this room will always reply to a resident. And also, I don't know about yourself, Councillor Farr, but I've had some not so nice emails. And you might think to yourself, well, yeah, that's not an appropriate question to forward on for the council to answer in an official capacity. Each question is based on its own merit, and we deal with it as individuals and how we receive it at the time. So yeah, we're all, every one of us in this room was elected to represent our residents, and this way we are still doing that democratically. Thank you.
I believe we have Councillor Whitehead and Councillor Fox.
I'd just like to get some clarity around the removal of petitions, because I don't believe that's something that's been delivered.
Yes, would you like to invite Jane just to speak on that?
The obligation on the council to have a scheme was removed probably 5, 6, 7 years ago. It's quite some time, and we haven't had an actual scheme for that kind of period. When I was doing the update, I noticed that there was still some actual references to the scheme in the rules, so I just simply took the opportunity to take them out because they were obsolete. So there's nothing sinister behind that. It was just they really shouldn't have been there because we don't have an actual scheme now.
Thank you. Councillor Cox?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just a couple of points on this subject. I know that County Council operate the same procedure, but unfortunately that was, for the last 8 years in my mind, Conservative ground. I didn't agree with that policy. I also didn't agree with the fact that as we've got the local election that's gone on, we've got a huge sway to another political party, and I think this doesn't really portray an image of openness, and I'm not comfortable with that. And I think if you try to close down democracy, or be seen to be trying to close down democracy, that is the issue. I understand why it's been brought in, and I don't doubt anyone's integrity that they will all bring forward those questions, but it's the being seen to do something. And also, just a case in point here, can I just actually get a bit of clarification, because according to the notes I have here, the wording actually states, members of the public wishing to ask a question must do so by asking one of their ward councillors. So unfortunately that's then, if it was just councillors, maybe we'd be able to look at this differently, but the wording in this says ward councillors.
Detail.
Thank you.
We'll move to Councillor Zell.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor.
I'm a little bit confused because we're getting conflicting messages. So we just had a correction, which is a really important correction. It does make a difference. But if the intention is that the resident sends a question to the councillor and the councillor just forwards it to the council, I don't understand the point of it. It's just introduce an extra bureaucratic step for no benefit. If the intention is that the council will vet the question and then send it forward, then we are giving individual councillors the right to decide what their residents can and can't ask, which seems wholly undemocratic. So which is it? Is it that we're just going to pass it on, or is it, or we are vetting the questions? Because otherwise there would no point to all of this. Thank you.
Councillor Unix?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just don't know what's all the fuss about. Public has a right to ask questions, the more the better. Why are we trying to stop the public having more questions to the officers or the council or the councillors? I think more debate the better. And the councils learn from the people, public feedback, and so is everybody else. I just don't know why they brought such a thing in, and I don't think this was necessary at all. I think anybody wants to ask questions to councillors or the council, by all means, they should have right to do that.
And also, I know one or two councillors who never bother even checking their emails. So I mean, if somebody puts a question through, they probably never will go through it. So I don't think it's fair, and I don't think it was necessary. And I don't know what the controlling group was thinking, or why they brought them in because the county council had something like that. That doesn't make sense. If the county council got something wrong, then we shouldn't follow it. I think it's completely wrong, and I also point out that it's a debate. And I don't think one or two persons taking a bit more personal kind of attack. It's nothing personal. It's a debate, and I think everybody has the right opinion. And I personally, genuinely believe, and I agree with the council father there, that this is creating more confusion and not, not helping the democracy. And I think what we should do, even though if we're going to move forward, move it with something. If the question has been sent to ward councillor, it should be also sent to the council too, so they both know what's going on and they both can work on it. But just to put a stop to the ward councillor, I mean, I don't think it helps democracy, and I don't think it's fair. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Parkins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Only a fortnight ago, I got an email forwarded to me from an officer in the council, reference something in one court. I went to the appropriate officer to ask about his problem. Within 4 days, I got an answer, I got action, I got back to the constituent, she congratulated me and said I didn't expect it being that fast, and I said, well, congratulate the officer as well, but I didn't mention the officer obviously, but that's how I work with officers of the council. Thank you.
Councillor Aziz.
If you look at the constitution, who's allowed to speak at this meeting? The elected members. You're there to represent your residents. And you look at last year, we had an incident where a resident asked a question, and given the constitution, they missed the deadline, and they weren't happy. As part of the report, I presented their question, I acknowledged who sent it in, and I provided an answer. But you look at it, this is simply you representing your residents. But then also you're not just representing them, you're there to act on their behalf, which you're elected to do. This is just empowering, but then giving you the ability to add to the discourse. If you get a response, you have the ability to challenge, add, take away. That's what you're there as elected members to do. So I don't understand why this notion of democracy is being curtailed. This is actually putting onus on and coming on to Council President's point. You're there to represent your electorate. They've sent it to you, go and then present it on the night. So I think is nothing malicious. It's just very firmly giving you the ability as elected representative to take that on board, then challenge the response. I don't think there's anything really sinister about it. I think it's just adding to the ability, because ultimately residents are not allowed to speak in this meeting. So we talk about wanting to act. This is exactly the platform to do it, and it's been tried and tested with success in other places. So I think it's I think we're just trying to grab headline, and just we should be championing our residents, and this is the way to do it.
Okay. Thank you. If that is all, you've already had your speech, sorry, Councillor Cadell. If that is everything, I will allow you to have that back.
Thank you. Yeah, just in relation to the comment about disingenuous, it is not that at all. It's naive to think that me scrutinising all to account, you as a controlling group, is disingenuous. It is not. You have created a situation where you've had two lots of access to this council democratically. You're removing one. By every nature, half a drop in democracy is worse. This council has enough reputation for not being accessible. So don't take away accessibility to make sure that you try and fake it and pretend it's not. It's about democracy, and we care for residents.
Can I highlight to everyone, if you are given a right to reply, that means you're replying to a comment that someone has given to yourself. It's not another chance for you to continue speaking about that. Okay. Councillor Ellison did want to do a point of order. Did you want to carry on with that?
I was going to make the point that Councillor Cox just made, that it says in both places, in the report and in the appendix, their ward councillors. Members of the public wishing to ask a question must do so by asking one of their ward councillors to raise the question, and then this is the bit that I really object to, although ward councillors are not obliged to agree to such requests.
That obviously you've done that point of order about obviously the motion. So
yeah, but it does say they're not obliged to agree.
Yeah, so we'll move on with that then, we'll go to the board. As a reminder, just because we have I will say that, yeah, Councillor Dabb, sorry.
Okay. Thank you. Well, one thing is for sure this time, I think the opposition have had a chance to actually read the Constitution. We made it simpler for them because we put it in a report this time, so they didn't have to sift through the Constitution, which they didn't bother to read last time. I think this item that is just mentioned, I think this needs to be amended, so I'll be proposing that the ward council needs to be removed and needs to include a councillor within borough, so it needs to be any councillor whatsoever. And the second thing is, these things are tried and tested and are working very well at County Court, which is controlled by the opposition. They themselves have actually had tried and tested and systems are in place where they have been given the opportunity to ask a question and also they're engaging with their residents. I'm disappointed to hear that some of the councils don't open their emails and don't read them. Do they only contact and communicate with their residents at election time? I think you should be communicating with your residents all the time. And if you are connecting with your residents, they will know who your representative is, and they will actually follow the question. And that can be both here. We moved the questions from a week on Wednesday, that's 8 days, to just 2 days to accommodate that, because there were people who wanted to put a question forward because they didn't have time. So that gives leverage that the councillor or the resident can actually put forward the question. The second is that the councillor, on the behalf of the residents, if they've been engaging with them, can ask a subsequent question that can also be answered. So this notion of lack of democracy, I think, is really a different world. So I agree that needs to be amended. That's really clarification basically. And finally, I just would like to remind Councillor Khan, of the last 12 years, we've tried very hard to actually work together to bring respect in this council. I think we have achieved much and better. I know there are some councillors who have got nothing better to do than just a smirk, and that's all they do, unfortunately. That's what they're good at. But we want to continue building on that to try and keep that respect within the council. I will certainly try and do that. I'm sure that you will do that as well. But there are times where people just need to check themselves, especially as the opposition does. So I will propose it with this slight amendment to the wording as it is. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll move on from that then with a vote to be taken with the amendment of the omission of it needs to be required to go to your ward councillor. So everyone's clear on that. So all in favour of this? Thank you. All against? And any abstentions? Apologies, we'll be able to do the objections again. Objections again. All against. We now move on to item number 12, which is the annual review of planning and licensing codes of practice. Do I have a mover?
Okay, I'll move this outline.
Sorry, was that carried? I think we didn't hear the result.
Sorry, yes, apologies, yeah, that was carried. Do I have a mover, sorry?
Yes, I move this outline.
Do I have a seconder?
Second, please.
Thank you. And does any members wish to speak on this?
Just a very brief technical amendment, Mr Mayor, that it still refers to the Chief Planning and Transportation Officer throughout the document. I think the title now is Head of Planning. That's how Hyndburn signed himself anyway. I presume that's been an official change of job title.
We will just check that to make sure that it is technically correct.
Okay, thank you.
We will move to the vote then, so can I have all a show of hands of all in favour? And any against? And any abstentions? Fantastic. Now we're on to item 13, which is timetable of meetings for 2025-26. Can I have a mover please?
I move that as outlined, Mr Mayor, thank you.
And can I have a seconder? Thank you. Does anyone wish to make any comments? Councillor Smithson?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just regarding the budget meeting on the 26th of February, it seems to have changed to 7:30 from 7. As we all know, the budget meeting is a very long meeting. Is there a reason behind that?
Councillor Dowd?
Yes, I should have outlined that, Councillor Smithson. During that time, it will be Ramadan, and rather than starting the meeting at 4 o'clock, which I think last time we had a little bit of a problem with people attending because of work, this time we delayed it slightly for that particular day. But we'll do our best to try and actually get that budget meeting quickly as possible.
Thank you. If that's everyone, then we'll move to the votes. Can I have a show of hands for all in favour? Thank you. And all against? And any abstentions? So we're on to item 14, which is record of attendance for council meetings of 2024-25. This is just for a noting only, so no vote is required. And then we move on to the conclusion of the meeting. So that concludes the annual meeting, but not all of our business is done this evening. A special meeting will now commence, during which we'll recognise the exceptional work of a number of local people and dedicated services of some of our past councillors. Unless members would like to take a short break, I suppose that we move straight on to the next meeting. Does anyone want a quick 5-minute break, or should we just carry on? Yeah? Carry on. So we'll move straight on. So we are now in this special council meeting, so we do have to go through some of the processes again. So we do have apologies for absence, which I believe will be Councillor Cassidy, Councillor Howard, Councillor Walsh, I'm assuming, Councillor Cox, Lorraine Cox, and Councillor Booth, sorry, yeah. Any others? And Councillor Plummer, sorry. Are there any declarations of interest or dispensations? No? So we now move on to item number 3, which is the appointments of honorary aldermen and freemen. I intend to take nominations in 2 trenches, as outlined in the report. Firstly, I'll ask members to consider the appointment of the 5 proposed honorary freemen en bloc, then councillors will be asked to consider the 4 nominations for honorary aldermen en bloc. Finally, members will be requested to approve the delegation of powers to do the necessary arrangements with the Chief Executive in consultation with the Leader of the Council.
Can I please request that both of the tranches, the freemans and the aldermen, are taken in a block rather than 2 tranches? Well, the request is a legitimate request. I don't know whether legal.
Can I request that the positions be voted individually? In reflection of that, each person has their individual merit and should be based on individual.
If you just mind, bear with me while I take some advice.
Wants to drag it out for about an hour, whereas Monty wants to finish early. Who'll win? James decided what's constitutional better. I don't know. Which way we go win? I mean, if Zach wins, I don't want a first for Conservatives to be done.
Mr Mayor, you have one report in front of you, and the report includes 2 recommendations, and that would then equate to request that you do it as one item of business. have a second request that is different from that, you are entitled to take whichever view you want. The report that's in front of you is constructed, you know, when you receive a report, you are looking at its entirety of its recommendations. So that would lend weight, as I say, to the idea that we would conduct that as one item of business.
Thank you for explaining that. Put him on the spot here. Given that I know the feeling of some people in this room, I do feel that we go to individual votes for the alderman and the freeman. It will take longer, I agree with that, but like I said, given the feeling of some people, I think it's also best to merit and warrant support for individuals rather than en bloc. I'm happy to go with that decision if that's possible.
I move that we take the item in front of the report as one block.
Put that. I've already moved it, you were second it, but you said no. You said no. You already said no. Don't want to do it on board.
Again, I would take that.
You've already said no.
Can I propose an adjournment of 5 minutes?
We'll see what the response of this is and then come back.
Excuse me, I think what we want to do is to arrive at a view on this that we think is reasonable and fair and is understood, even if not everybody agrees with it. To give us the space to do that, I would like us to have 5 or 10 minutes with the Mayor, and we would invite, if the leaders could just be available before we come back in, we will talk through with the leaders the view that we have taken, the discussion that we've had with the Mayor. So we can do that.
The Mayor's made a decision, and now the Chief Exec is superseding that decision, because he obviously wasn't going to go later on either.
He's actually saying that he wants the report to go through as intended. So it's not an amendment, but it would be contrary to the Mayor's initial judgment. So if we could just work our way through that issue, have a discussion privately in the chamber, and if we can do that firstly with the Mayor, and then when the Mayor's got a settled view on it, we'll invite the leaders in. So if the leaders can just be available, that would be very helpful. Can I just make one further point, please? With regard to the view that you might want to have a debate about individuals and do it on an individual basis, I would be suggesting to you, and I'll suggest to the Mayor, but I don't want to do this in private, I'll suggest to you publicly, I'm not sure that it's wise to have debates about individuals who some, are in and some are not in the room and don't have a right to speak, and who are we to, there's something in terms of a discussion about honouring people that I would be exercising caution about and saying, if you're going to start talking about individuals, then you should be in private session at the very least, so that nobody is caused any embarrassment. But secondly, you should reflect on that in any case, as to whether you would be discussing individuals at this point. If there were issues around that, you would have thought that would have been understood before coming into the chamber. Anyway, we'll have our discussion with the Mayor, if that's okay. I can see Councillor Gilbert indicating I'm
going to say no.
Mr.
I'm going to have it on
Councillor
board.
Gilbert? Talking about not debating about individual members we nominated, but are we able to pay tributes?
Well, so I think by the same token, what I would say is, my advice by the same token would be, if you get into the debate, I suppose I'm advising against the debate of individuals.
Yes, he is.
Which might be
already said that he
separate from
wants that.
advice about voting on individuals,
No.
but the debate about it,
You're not running the
expressing
you're not running the
opinions
meeting, the
about
Mayor is.
people
The Mayor's
who
already
are
decided,
unable
he's made a
to
decision.
either respond or to,
Technically. Now you're going to go back
may
on
or
it.
may not be in the room and so on. That would be a different matter. But let us just have that discussion with the Mayor.
Alright, you want to try
And once that's been deliberated,
Make him
then we'll
change
have a
his mind.
discussion with the leaders. And this may take the next 10 to 20 minutes. Maybe it'll be 10, maybe it'll be 20, because the leaders may want to discuss it further when we come back in. But if we can just allow ourselves to get this right, that's better.
Ladies and gentlemen, please stand while the mayor retires from the chair.
And the mayor's indicated he doesn't want long on his own, and this joins very early in the discussion, so if you could just be, you could just be matter of a couple of minutes.
Please stand for the mayor to re-enter the chamber. Thank you.
Thank you. Please be seated.
Mr Mayor, I believe you're going to call on the leader to move into private session.
Yes, so we have discussed it at length with both leaders as well. We will be moving this to go into private session. Please can I have a mover of that?
I move that, Mr Mayor.
Please have a seconder.
I'll second that, Mr Mayor.
We have to do the votes. Yes, you do.
Please can I have a show of hands to move into a private session. Any against? Any abstentions?
Thank you. That's carried, Mr Mayor, and therefore we must ask the public to leave.